The rain fell in steady whispers over the port city of Busan. Narrow alleys shimmered with reflections from neon signs, and the smell of salt and market fish filled the early morning air. The Jigalki market, alive with voices and movement, buzzed under the gray skies. Amongst the vendors, Minji stood at her small, weather-worn stall. She was sorting second-hand electronics, radios, blenders, chargers, cleaning each item carefully, arranging them like treasures. Her hands were calloused, her apron stained, but her eyes held a quiet fire. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise. Every night, she left with sore feet and tired bones, but her heart always remained intact. Minjia, called Mrs. Song from the next stall, an elderly woman selling dried squid. You should cover those boxes before they're soaked. Minji nodded. Thank you, Ajumma, she replied with a smile, rushing to grab a sheet of plastic. Life was hard, but she never complained. Her mother, lying ill at home, depended on her. There was no room for despair, only duty. But that morning was different. As she bent down to cover her boxes, a sleek black car pulled up near the edge of the market. It didn't belong here. Out stepped a woman in a tailored beige coat and high heels that clearly weren't made for wet market paths. Minji's breath caught in her throat. It was Seojin. Her heart thudded once, heavily, like a door slamming shut in her chest. 3 years had passed since their silent breakup. No messages, no goodbyes. Minji had moved on the only way she could, forward. But now Seojin was here, glowing, polished, a luxury handbag on her arm and a diamond ring glinting coldly under the clouds. And beside her, stepping out of the car with an umbrella held just for himself, was a tall man in a tailored coat. Hyunwoo. Minji didn't know him, but something about his confident stride, the way he looked around with thinly veiled distaste, made her stomach churn. The couple walked closer, laughing softly. Seojin didn't notice Minji, at least not immediately. But when their eyes finally met, the smile on Seojin's face flickered. Just for a second. Then came the voice. Well, said Hyunwoo, loud enough for vendors nearby to hear. Is this where your past lives now? He looked Minji up and down, his gaze lingering on her worn gloves and the stains on her apron. Seojin said nothing. She didn't need to. Minji's mouth opened, then closed. Her pulse raced, but she said nothing. Not yet. Hyunwoo scoffed. A dealer of garbage? That's quite the career path. There was a laugh, cruel and sharp. The rain kept falling, unnoticed by the man with the umbrella. Minji didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She just stood there, soaked, silent, watching, because something in her had shifted. And though she didn't know it yet, this rainy morning in Jigalki would change the course of her life. The rain had stopped, but Minji's thoughts remained drenched. That night, she sat by her mother's bedside, a bowl of porridge untouched in her lap. Her mother slept lightly, breathing unevenly, her skin pale and thin like worn rice paper. Minji gazed out the window. Busan's lights blinked softly against the harbor. Her reflection stared back, tired, slightly hollow. Why had Seojin returned? She tried not to care. Yet the memory of Hyunwoo's sneer echoed in her chest like a stone dropped in still water. A worthless dealer. That's what he had called her. That night, she dreamed of the past. Of long walks with Seojin through Gamcheon village, fingers entwined, laughter spilling across the painted steps. She remembered the way Seojin once spoke about dreams, art, teaching, maybe living in Seoul one day. But somewhere along the line, those dreams had frayed. When Minji's father died and her mother fell ill, Seojin slowly withdrew, like the tide pulling back. Until one day, she simply stopped calling. Minji had buried those memories. But now they returned, uninvited. And so did a question. What did Seojin see in Hyunwoo? In the days that followed, Minji noticed Hyunwoo more often. Once outside a luxury bakery in Haeundae, barking at a delivery boy. Another time at a charity gala posted on social media, standing beside Seojin like a trophy. He was wealthy, sharp, connected, but cold. Then rumors came from vendors in the market. One had overheard him speaking to a developer about buying up land near Jigalki. Minji listened in silence. Can't be true, Mrs. Song said, shaking her head. This market's been here longer than any of us. But Minji wasn't so sure. She'd seen the way Hyunwoo looked at her stall, as if it was filth. He had power. And people like him didn't build markets. They demolished them. One evening, she searched his name. Hyunwoo Kang, CEO of Myri Real Estate Holdings. Known for luxury redevelopment projects and multiple lawsuits from displaced communities. Minji's hands curled into fists. She wasn't just a worthless dealer to him. She was in the way. That weekend, Minji organized a cleanup with the local vendors. Banners were raised. The stalls were polished. Children painted colorful signs that read, Jigalki lives here. It wasn't much, but it was something. A local blogger came. Then a journalist. Suddenly, people were taking photos, asking questions. A woman with a camera interviewed Minji, who spoke nervously but from the heart. This market raised me, she said. It's not just a place to sell fish. It's a place where people survive and sometimes, where they start again. That clip went viral. Even Seo Jin saw it. Later that week, she messaged Minji. The screen blinked for minutes before Minji opened it. You looked strong. I hope you're well. Minji stared at the message. She didn't reply. Seojin and Hyunwoo hosted a lavish dinner at a 5-star hotel. A photo of the event appeared in a newspaper. But hidden behind the smiles, something was crumbling. Whispers began to spread in business circles. Myri Real Estate was under pressure. A sole project had stalled. Investors were pulling out. One evening, Seojin sat in her luxury flat staring out over the bay. Hyunwoo had changed. He was impatient, distant, cruel. When she'd first met him, he'd promised her a life of elegance and safety. He had delivered both. But love, that had never truly arrived. She watched an old video, one she'd taken of Minji years ago, dancing in the rain, laughing, completely unguarded. And for the first time in years, her chest ached. Not for wealth, but for something real. Minji had an idea. She began collecting and used electronics from local schools, businesses, and temples, refurbishing them and selling them at half price. The market supported her. A nearby youth center offered a storage space. What began as a side income turned into something bigger. She called it Jigalki Retech. More eyes turned her way. A journalist wrote a profile. Local officials noticed. So did Hyunwoo. She's a flea market fixer, he scoffed to his assistant. This is nothing. But the market saw different. They saw hope. One night, Minji received a package. Inside was a pair of gloves, new, thick, padded for winter work. No name attached. But she knew the handwriting. Seojin's. A legal notice arrived. Hyunwoo had filed for the forced acquisition of 3 key stalls, including Minji's. The market fell into silence. Some vendors panicked. Others wept. Mrs. Song held Minji's hand tightly. He can't do this. Minji stood firm. He hasn't yet. That night, she met with a lawyer. They had a small case. Not strong, but enough to delay things. Enough to gather attention. They launched a petition. Protests followed. Soon camera crews came back. University students joined. Even local politicians began to question Myri's intentions. Hyunwoo fumed. At home, he threw a wine glass against the wall. Seojin didn't even flinch. You're losing to a junk dealer, she said softly. He didn't answer. But the silence was enough. One evening, Minji came home to find her mother struggling to breathe. She rushed her to the hospital. Machines beeped. Nurses moved fast. A doctor looked grim. We'll keep her comfortable, he said. But prepare yourself. Minji sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand, whispering promises through tears. Outside, Seojin stood in the hallway. She hadn't told Hyunwoo she'd come. Minji saw her. Their eyes met. No words were spoken. But this time, Seojin stepped closer. She used to give me hotteok after school, Seojin said, voice cracking. She was always kind. Minji nodded. They stood in silence for a long time. When Seo-jin left, she paused at the door. You were never worthless. Then she walked away. Minji's mother passed quietly that winter. The market mourned with her. But from that grief, something rose. A government grant came through. Jigalki Retech expanded. They hired staff, youth, mothers, seniors. They opened a repair station, a community cafe, and a learning space. Minji gave a talk at a local university. She spoke of resilience, memory, and how value was never about price tags. People listened. Even Seoul began to listen. Hyunwoo watched from afar. His company was collapsing. Lawsuits stacked. Shares fell. Investors fled. He walked through the Jigalki market one evening, coat soaked in the rain, ignored by the people he once mocked. He stopped in front of Minji's stall. But no one looked up. Not anymore. Spring came to Busan. Flowers bloomed on market stalls. Sea breeze swept through the alleyways. Children laughed as they helped paint new murals near Riteka's walls. Minji stood beside a repurposed vending machine, now giving out free books. A reporter approached. Do you regret staying here? He asked. Minji looked around. At the stalls. The faces. The noise. The light. She smiled. Some things are worth more than escape. And then she turned, greeted a young girl asking about fixing her old laptop, and continued working. No applause. No headlines. Just the quiet rhythm of purpose. And that, for Minji, was everything.